Hello everybody, welcome back. In this brief video, I am going to talk about GitHub some more, specifically changes that you make whenever you're working with any kind of Unity project or anything really in GitHub. History, aka your commits, and I also want to talk very briefly about how to use GitHub when working with other people. So let's get into it. First of all, I am going to make just a few changes to my Unity Git test scene that we've been working with for all our GitHub videos so far. So give me a minute and I will make a quick cut and I will make a few changes here. Alright, so I went ahead and changed the scene. I changed the skybox. If we go into rendering lighting, I changed the skybox into a spatial mapping wireframe, which apparently came with the empty project, so that's pretty cool. I went ahead and played around with the lighting a little bit. I went ahead and added a tree, which by the way is up here under Game Object, 3D Object, Tree right here. I went ahead and added a tree in. It's not something we covered this semester, but it's something that you may want to look into for your own terrains and for your own projects. How to use Unity trees if you wanted to. I would usually work with other programs to make my trees, but I mean, nothing's stopping you from working with Unity to make trees. It seems to be pretty relatively sophisticated once you get the hang of the node-based workflow for trees. Anyway, I made ahead, made some changes. I also went ahead and imported the Chivolo character just to add in more changes for this particular scene. So now let's go to GitHub Desktop, and we can see, as always, all our changes are listed here, 126. You want to make sure you work in short increments so that you don't pile up that many changes or that large of a that large of a commit for GitHub. GitHub does have a limit on how large you can make a commit. I forget exactly what it is, but you don't want to make it that overly large. Otherwise, you will be stuck waiting for a very, very long time for your commit to go through. But let's say that for whatever reason you did all this stuff that I did, but decided you didn't like any of it and wanted to revert back to how it was before. Well, very simply, you can just select all of your changes, and you can just right-click and go to discard 126 selected changes. So we're just going to go ahead and discard them all and get everything back to how it was before. So let's go ahead and we're going to wait for a second there for everything to go back through. We have 0 changed files. This is going to reload really, really quick as it comprehends what just happened here. And everything has gone back to normal, except for the spatial mapping, interesting enough. But as you can see, the Chivolo character is gone, the tree is gone. Interesting enough, the spatial mapping is still there. I wonder why that's the case. I mean, it's very easy to change it back ourselves. We just go to lighting, we just go to environment, we just change it back to default, and there you go. I'm curious, however, as to why that didn't change. It doesn't seem to register as a change within GitHub, so that's interesting. That is very, very good to know. Not something I was actually expecting, but whatever. The point remains that everything else went ahead and was reset to how it was before you actually started your work session. So that is one way to undo your workflow. Some things are still left over, like the tree is still here. We can go ahead and just delete the tree just to not have it there anymore. Since if you have something in your hierarchy that doesn't exist in the scene itself, it's going to be highlighted red for you to know that it's not there anymore. Yeah, so that's one way that you can undo your changes if you were not happy with a current work session or were just experimenting with some stuff and wanted to very quickly reset everything back to how it was before without having to make different save files. Next, I am going to make a bunch of changes and commit them, and then we're going to go ahead and see how we can undo that. So give me 1 second. Okay, went ahead and added a terrain, a particle system. I re-imported the Chivolo character back. So let's go ahead and commit this. Let's say I was happy with this for whatever reason. So let's open up GitHub Desktop. Here's all my changed files. I am going to save this as terrain added terrain, particles, and imported third-person capsule controller. And we will go ahead and commit that to the main, and we will go ahead and push that. And we'll give that a second. There we go. And now we're in a situation. So now this is saved. This is now committed and pushed onto the onto the main GitHub website. What do we do if for some reason we weren't happy with this commit? If we wanted to go back to how it was before? Well, quite simply, instead of working under changes, you work under history, and under history you can see the history of all of the commits that you pushed to the origin, i.e., to the website. So here we can see our initial commit when we just created that git ignore way back in that first video. Here's when we created the Unity project, i.e., when we added all the files in. Here's all our work sessions from the demo videos. Here's when we did our this is when we did our merging and branch conversation. And here in terrain added is the most recent one, where we went ahead and created the terrain, the particle system, and added in the Shvola character. Let's say we weren't happy with that and wanted to undo this. How would we actually go about that? Let me go ahead and select that just so we have everything nice and set up here. Let me go ahead and just right-click the commit that I want to undo, which is this terrain added. This works best when you work with the commit you just pushed, but technically you can do this with any of these with any of these commits. Though it makes the most sense to work with the commit that is at the top of the hierarchy here, at the most recent one that you work with. But technically, you could undo any of these and get some weird results. But anyway, let's work with the one we just created here, where we added our terrain particles, imported a third-person capsule controller. There's your description. There's your summary. Let's go ahead and right-click. We are going to go ahead and revert the changes in the commit. We can do lots of things. We can reorder the commits. We can amend the commits. Quite simply though, for getting used to Unity and getting used to Unity and getting introduced to GitHub, reverting is the safest and most straightforward thing you can do. So let's just revert the changes in this commit. We're going to give that a second, and now we have a new commit. So this doesn't delete the commit. Reverting the changes of a commit does not delete the commit that you've made. All it does is create a new commit on top of that, and all that commit does is just systematically undo everything that the previous commit did. So at this point, all we have left to do is to take our new commit here, this terrain added. We don't have anything in changes, but we do have it here in history. And we can see it up here. We have this push origin, as we always do whenever we have changes to push. And now we just push it. And now we're back to how it was before. So let's go back into Unity. This is going to take a second to load and update appropriately. We want to reload the scene. Yes, of course we do. And here we are. We are back to how we were before. No particle system, no terrain, no Shvola folder here. That is another safe way on how to undo your changes. If you find that you made a mistake, or you committed something, or pushed something that you didn't want to push or commit, that is another way on how you can safely undo your work when you're working through GitHub, through version control, as it were. Remember, it does not, reverting the changes of a commit does not actually delete that commit. All it does is add a new commit that systematically undoes that the previous commit. I mean, technically, if you wanted to, I think we can revert the changes in this commit and go back to, we can revert this revert here, and we can push this. And if we push that, we should have everything back. So let's go ahead and give this a second to load in. And we will reload the scene. And here we go. Everything's back. The terrain's back. Shvola's back. The particle system is back. There you go. That is how you can very, very safely work with commits. There are more things you can do. We're not going to cover them in this class, but there is more things of amending, reordering. Reverting is the safest thing you can do. Again, all it does is just create a new commit that systematically undoes everything in the previous commit, and that's it. And that is a very, very safe way to work with GitHub. Now, the last thing I wanted to talk about is using GitHub with other people. Now, we've talked about a lot of the basics: creating your GitHub account and repositories, putting in Unity projects into those repositories, git ignores. We discussed the basics of how changes work, how to undo your changes, how to undo commits. We talked about branches. We have not had a chance to talk about how to work with other people, and unfortunately, for how this semester is set up, we're not really going to be able to have a chance to use GitHub with other people that much. If you're going to be working in the industry, whether it's game design or anything even remotely related to it, you're probably going to be using some form of version control eventually, and it's very likely you're not going to be using it alone. You'll be working in a larger team of people. So, how do you properly use GitHub when you're working with other people? Well, it really comes down to branches. You really want to make sure that you have branches either set up for specific tasks or branches set up for specific people. Creating specific branches for people and tasks, coming up with an appropriate time to do stand-ups and review everything that's in those branches, and coming up with a routine schedule of when you actually push and merge your commits into a master branch is really the key of how to effectively work with GitHub with larger groups of people. That's not something we're going to be able to put into practice, unfortunately, this semester, because again, the majority of the work you're doing in this class is going to be solo work, but you can start getting used to GitHub right now. And the best way to do that is just by using it with your projects. Just create simple projects, work with them through GitHub, practice creating branches, create branches for specific tasks, merge them in with your main branch when you're done with those specific tasks, make some mistakes, undo those mistakes here in the history, or just by discarding the changes here under changes. The best way you can work with GitHub is just by practicing, making more and more projects with it. I am going to put up some material in the Moodle that will help you get deeper into the coding side of GitHub if you were interested in that. But in terms of the basics of what we covered this semester, this is it. How to create your repositories, how to add projects in those repositories, how to commit your changes, a nice steady workflow of work, then commit changes, work, commit changes, work, commit changes, work, commit changes, how to create different branches, how to undo changes, how to undo commits that you push, and the theory that, the best way to work with other people is by creating special branches for those people, or special branches for people to do certain tasks, and, finding a specific time to merge those specific branches together. Again, it's something you really are just going to have to work on yourself to really get the hang of. I would recommend you use this semester and the projects that we work on here as, practice for how to incorporate GitHub into your workflow. I hope you're doing that. You don't have to do that for this class, but I hope you are, because the industry does demand that you have some knowledge of version control, regardless of what specialty you focus on. Most everybody who works on games are exposed to version control in some way or another. So I hope you take these few videos to heart. Again, I'm going to put up some more material in the Moodle of things that you can look at in the GitHub website and beyond that could potentially help you further push your GitHub workflow and your GitHub work in general. Otherwise, we're going to leave it at that for now. I do plan on bringing up GitHub a few more times throughout the course of this semester, but in terms of teaching you new things about it, that's not really going to happen anymore. It's mostly just going to be a application of the things we've done so far. So an application of creating your own repositories, of adding projects to those repositories, of the steady workflow of some work, then commit your changes, some work, then commit your changes, creating branches, merging branches, undoing changes, and undoing commits. It's just going to be an application of those things as opposed to teaching you new stuff on top of that. So I'm not going to keep rambling. This has been a brief video on how to undo your changes and commits with GitHub and the basic theory of how to work with other people in GitHub. Again, more material on the Moodle. You're free to check that out. Thank you very much for watching. Bye-bye.